Welcome to the Roundtable Marketing Podcast, the podcast where people who make marketing and people who buy marketing come together. My name is Nick, and this is...
Oh, sorry, dang it.
I've never said "and this is." Yeah, I've never done that before, Brian.
And this is Brian.
Right.
My name's Brian.
Brian, what are we talking about today?
Ooh, we're talking content.
Talking about content creation. And why are we talking about content creation?
Well, because it's everything, because it's what we do. The reason why we're talking about it is because a lot of times when people talk marketing, they really are thinking with the end in mind of what marketing does for you as far as bringing people to the business.
Naturally.
What they aren't discussing often enough is the fundamentals of making content and making content that's any worth reading or watching or listening to. So they don't really talk about that aspect of it. Sometimes people will talk about it like an art form, which I think is somewhat valuable. I think you can get lost in marketing if you're too focused on the artistry of it. And I think there's a lot of people in marketing that are focused on the artistry, how they do it, and it slows them down. I think there's some people that focus on the artistry of marketing to sell their marketing, and they're not actually being artistic about it, which is a different problem in general. But people are not really talking about like what it takes to get good content on a regular basis often enough. And I think that's something that's really important because as we move into the new era of content development, we're making a change to how content is created in a way that we've never seen before. Because up until 3 years ago, creating content was a content creator behind it, putting their brain into it, putting their hands into it. And you can go back to cave paintings. There was still a human being who drew the paintings. And then more technology arises. Now we have the printing press. And so the content was still a human being creating something. And then the printing press was being implemented to spread the word. And as you get
calligraphers,
into more
I'm sorry,
yeah.
you're out of a job.
Yeah.
Unless you're really good.
Well, yeah, oh man, that's a totally different topic. But the niching of hard skills like that, they're actually like getting better. There's just less calligraphers and they're now more valuable. But as you get further and further through the world of mass communications, the way we made content was still the same. The way we distributed content kept getting more and more interesting. And, you could say, well, the jump from a typewriter to a word processor changed the way writers write. Yeah, I think so, for sure. But there was still a writer writing. And now we're at this point where the implementer, the prompter, may not actually be putting creativity into it. And so we're able to operationally create better and more content, but we're not necessarily creating better content. And in some cases,
Yes.
We're not creating more content. So
or content that does what you want it to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're talking about it because it's very front of mind. And you and I got a great chance to join. We were attendees at a panel. So we're both St. Louis residents, and there is a fantastic conference each year called the Midwest Digital Marketing Conference. And as far as St. Louis marketing goes, it is the de facto big marketing conference for people in our world. So MDMC wanted to put on an off-season event, and they put together a really, really great panel of
Awesome.
It was sort of the creme de la creme of what would have been in the 2-day conference at MDMC on one stage. So it was the best of the breed talking about stuff. And so we had to make sure that us and our friends from the Nest flew out and saw it. So we went down there yesterday and watched that. And it put a lot of these AI, machine learning things in front of our heads in a way that we were thinking about it. So we wanted to talk about it today.
Yeah, and I'm curious why you brought up the artistry aspect. Obviously, there's that further distancing. The prompter is further away from that final product creatively, let's say, than the traditional artist. But are there any other reasons why you bring up artistry in advertising? Because obviously, an ad can move you. I think ads are supposed to draw on emotional hooks, but it's different from Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan. Why?
Well,
what's Bob Dylan doing that's different from a marketer creating content?
I actually think it's more interesting to talk about what he's doing the same. So a young Robert Zimmerman, he came into this world wanting to make beautiful things. He wanted to be an artist. He had moved himself to New York with his guitar to make music. That's what he did. And that is something that, like, there is an innate desire in the human psyche to make things. And some of us sit back and enjoy. Some of us don't care about beauty and artistry at all. But there are some of us who, from early days, the desire to create is fostered inside of us. I have never met a creative director, a designer, a copywriter that didn't do the thing they do for a living for fun first. I've never met one. I've never met a copywriter that wasn't like, I want to write something cool. I've never met one. I mean, my story with video, that's my whole entry into this whole thing. There are a lot of VHS tapes of me and my buddies trying to hack using a VHS camera and editing in the camera because there was no nonlinear editing, digital editing system. So we were just editing in our camera because we didn't have two cameras to go back and forth with the tapes, right? So like we were doing that the hard way because it was fun and we loved it and we wanted to make things. Like we wanted to make things to entertain each other. We wanted to make things to entertain ourselves. And we had this dream of entertaining the world. That's where it comes from, right? So Bob Dylan and me have something very much in common, which is what got us started was a desire to make beautiful things and be an artist. That's what got us going. The pivot into that is, well, for all the Bob Dylans in the world, there are a lot of people who are hacks who tried to be Bob Dylan. I mean, he was the voice that launched 1,000 nasal voices, and thinking about what that does. Well, there's a lot of people that go into that. Well, when you're a singer,
you're not going to name names, Brian. You're not going to name names.
I
thought we wanted to make this
I'm not
a
even going to say, because
discussion.
To me, I'm talking about the people that we never heard their music because they weren't good. I'm not even talking about the people that sounded like Bob Dylan and made it, and I mean, if Bob Dylan's not an influence in your liner notes or the Beatles, who did you put in there? He's a Nobel Prize laureate. Come on. But that launching of all those things, well, if you're a singer, you really kind of don't have a lot of marketable ways to then use your artistry. And it's the only one is to make music professionally, right? If you're a writer and you want to write America's next, the great American novel, or, you're a video maker that wants to be the next Spielberg, there are a lot of layers of financially lucrative things to do below that: copywriting, video creation, graphic design, right? So the industry is full of people that got into it because they wanted to make art, and then they ended up making commercial art. That's what they did, right? So that's actually the similarity between us and Bob Dylan is greater, in that respect. We're starting out from the same place. So when you get to this point, though, of some people forget that they're not Bob Dylan, that they're a jingle writer for the radio station downtown, right? They forget that. And so they bring artistry to their work in a way that gets in the way of their work because the art is more important than the audience. And that's a problem, because when Bob Dylan writes whatever he wants to write, the way he makes things, audiences love it. There's other bands who write things for people to like, and they do a good job too. That's an audience first mentality. But when you're in graphic design, if you're just doing things that you like and you don't have that spark, that X factor that makes everything you make turn into gold, it'll turn into nothing and you won't have money. And so there is a factor of like leaving artistry behind in the sense of you need to focus on your audience first, and then you need to be an artist with it and using your skills and your genius to make something cool. But you have to focus on your audience first, and people in general have a hard time making that self-realization that they get in the way of making things that are good. And that leads into the problems with content of today that we can talk about. But
I would love to know, for instance, because there are all kinds of creators, and I know I get a kick out of making something great for a client that isn't necessarily something I would write on my own or even close to something I would write on my own. I want to know if the guy who wrote By Menon, the jingle, if that was creatively fulfilling for him, because he kind of nailed it.
Well, he could be a couple different types of artists. One could be a nutcase who thinks by Menon 3 notes is a song, and like that's very avant-garde. So he might just be like an avant-garde creative that makes by Menon as that was his art. He's like, no, I actually wrote this song as a passion project, and then somebody heard me singing it, and then they picked it up. The second would be the opposite, which is it's not about artistry. It's about a fundamental understanding of the audience, so much so that no one had a jingle that was that tight. I don't even remember what Menon was. I think it's deodorant. I really don't.
Yes.
Okay, cool, okay. But I don't buy the product, and I don't think I've seen that product on a shelf in 100 years. And yet you and I went straight to it, right? Well, he could have been on the other side, or she could have been on the other side of it and created that jingle knowing that it was a powerful, insidious way to get inside of people's heads and never leave and put that in people's heads, in which case he was very audience first. Let me ask you this question, and it's a loaded question. I know your answer. Is By Menon a great jingle?
So personally, I'm a DJ on the weekends, DJ Menon. I use it at the front of every song so people know this is my mix. It's really good for that. That may or may not be true. I think that it's a good jingle because it's stuck in my head. I remembered what it was for personally.
No, I would say like as far as jingles go, it's as good as they get. You know, like it's not like there are some good ones in St. Louis. You know, Frederick Roofing's one of my favorites. You know,
oh, it's so good.
Can you sing it for us, or do I need to do it?
For a hole in your roof or a whole new roof, Frederick Roofing.
I was not going to rush that, by the way.
The note progression on that is beautiful, right? It's good. Yes. I mean, that's a good. If it was a full song, I'd listen to the whole song. But there's a lot of good jingles out there that you could mention. But when we were kids, that was a big part of advertising for sure. And I have a lot of them stuck in my head, like the Water Babies theme song is stuck in my head still, you know. There are jingles like that. But he knew that 3 notes was going to infest our brains. You know, like he knew that. And I would say that it wasn't by mistake. He killed it, you know?
Well, I think we'll talk more about the mind of the creative because it's relevant to this conversation. But I want to ask you kind of more to the point. Because we're talking about how AI tools and generative AI tools are changing content creation, how does it make you feel when you see something that was clearly generative AI was part of the creative process that's bad, that looks bad?
Here's why it sucks. It sucks because as much as we feel like we're in the world of, to quote Arcade Fire, infinite content, it is not infinite content because we do not have an infinite amount of time in a day. And a platform cannot simultaneously broadcast everything. It still is a linear user experience. So the fact that so much of my user experience now sucks because the content sucks. And is it audience first? I think it is. So one of the things I'm noticing is there's a lot more hidden camera style videos of absurd things happening. And I don't care.
Let's clarify. I mean, you're talking about pure engagement bait type of content.
Yes,
right?
Yes, right.
And I was thinking
I'm
more in terms of like
as much slop because of the places I swim. The algorithms don't feed me slop as much. They feed me engagement bait. I put them in the same category, which is they both are uninteresting and annoying to me, and I don't like them.
I'll try to narrow the example. So, for instance, if you were out and you saw a billboard for a restaurant out front, a sign, and they have an AI-generated mascot, maybe an AI-generated word mark. You can tell they are because there might be little inaccuracies, imperfections, or the style is just kind of AI style. You sort of know it when you see it, or you don't, and we'll get into that. But if you see something that was hastily put together, let's say, or doesn't feel like a lot of effort was put into it, or it just looks bad, how does that make you feel? I'm interested in the emotional response to it because I think that's important to recognize.
Well, there's 2 Brians. One of the Brians is a normal person, and then the other Brian is a very philosophical marketing CEO. So when I see things like which one of me shows up, so the executive function of my brain, the part of my brain that I would say is like the main feeling of my brain, the one who feels like he's driving me, you know, my thoughts, the ego, I guess, or whatever. When I look at those things, I'm like, this can't work for anybody else because it definitely wouldn't work for me. And also, it shows me that their care for it is so low that I question whether what's going to be on the other side of that sign is going to have the same amount of care. So that's something. I will go back to, I was in Zimbabwe in 2014. So this was not AI, but I took a picture of it. I have it on my phone somewhere. There was a beauty store, and they had, just, I'll use the term loosely, they had photoshopped together their sign. It was not a good sign. And one of the models in it was my friend and yours, Nelly, the rapper, was just one of the guys as a model in it. And it made me laugh so much because Nelly, he was in 2014. He wasn't necessarily an A-list star at the time. I don't know if he had any big songs around that time. He's probably a little before that. But
He did.
I'm just like lost.
Those were his country crossover years, Brian.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well, okay. Then I would say that then I can't imagine in Zimbabwe the songs were getting there. But I'm sitting there like looking at the sign way longer because it was so poorly executed. It's just awesome, right? But now the equivalent is you see a work truck driving through, and it's a Chuck in a Truck type brand, and they have what's clearly something they prompted, and they're like, yeah, that'll work, and it looks bad. And to me, I go, yeah, I mean, not that a Chuck in a Truck can't get a job done, but I'm not going to confuse him with one of the more reputable, bigger brands in town that are going to have a reputation to keep up. And, they have to do what they say they're going to do because otherwise they're going to get raked through the coals of the Better Business Bureau. So to me, my marketing brain questions it. My regular guy brain, if I can be this retrospective and introspective, I think I just don't buy from them and don't think about it at all, like I would with any bad branding or logo. Like when you miss the mark, you miss the mark. And I think that if someone did a really, really good job with AI, I might be able to tell what it was, but I probably would just think it was a good logo. So in essence, there is this world of so my normal guy, which is more important to serve the normies than me, is to say what converts your audience to take the action that you desire is the right choice. And AI Slop is saying, I need a billboard. It's not saying I need to convert an audience and take care of them. So when you just throw out content, and we're getting to a bigger story about content generation, we're sort of picking the most obvious visible pieces of it right now, because the invisible version of this, it actually scales very, very much into a much bigger problem for businesses and brands, is the slop of it all. Because if they keep making slop because they got their job done, they're going to suffer from the same problem that business that I didn't walk into had, which is I'm not going to buy from you. And me and the normies are just not going to show up. So that's the real problem behind it.
I really love this distinction you made about the normie and the marketer in you, because it is kind of our job to be extra sensitive on an aesthetic level to things that maybe someone walking down the street might not notice or might not call out. We're trying to notice things that the brain notices without telling you, if that makes sense. So I think that's a great distinction, because you're right. There is a portion of the audience where a hastily made AI logo wouldn't offend, bother, or otherwise deter. And then there's that other portion of the audience, and this really gets into audience, because if, for instance, you are a craft store and you're dealing with lots of artistically minded people who are your clients, it's probably in your best interest to be artistically minded when you make stuff.
Well, and think of the brand that you want to love. There's a layer of, you and I were joking about a certain brand that we won't mention, but that I don't love the brand, but I buy their stuff, And actually I can think of a couple different stores. I don't love their brand. And I mean, I don't love their whole brand, like the whole picture of the business brand, not just their logo, but I do engage with their products. So that's layer one.
You're talking to me about every sports league.
Well, actually, you're going a little deeper there, because you don't love them, right. You hate them sometimes, and that's also okay,
because I love the game. Because I love the game.
It's different. There's a difference between apathy and true hatred.
Good point.
I'm talking about I don't love a brand, meaning I'm apathetic. Not I don't love you. If I said that to my kids, it would be bad. But when I say I don't love the guy walking down the street, you're like, yeah, why? You don't know him. I mean, he's a good guy, but the apathy. But I loving a brand versus just buying from a brand, and so you hate the league but you're still absolutely buying the product. That's so I would say, if you want to use the word love as far as truly like engaging in a relationship with the brand, how about that? Versus just a transactional, I just get a thing from you. Not to throw anybody under the bus, but I was at a CVS in New York 2 weeks ago, and I was just getting deodorant. I don't love CVS. That's not my friend. It was a convenience store. If it didn't say CVS, I still would have tried to buy deodorant from them, So when we talk about that, well, what's better than transactional is a real loving relationship with the brand, because that's what equates to better engagement and bigger stuff. So if you do love, let's go from craft store to coffee shop. If you love the coffee shop, I love Caldi's. Caldi's is a St. Louis-based coffee shop. I love them. I really do. And I have spent so much money there over the decades because I love them. I love going. I really do. Like thinking about like spending a beautiful fall morning sitting there at Caldi's with my laptop cracked open, working on whatever I want to work on or doing paperwork is the best thing I can imagine, right? And I love it. And I don't feel that way about some other big brand places. There are two major labels I'm not going to throw under the bus, but there are two major label places where I could go sit. And in both of them, I don't like their coffee. And I wouldn't buy it. I would just steal their Wi-Fi. That's what I would do, right? But me stealing their Wi-Fi, unless they have a really cool data capture game, which I don't think they have, is really just, that's all I'm doing with them. That's just a transactional relationship. I don't relationally engage with their brand. And so getting to that level of relational engagement with a brand is better for business and it's better for humanity. Like I think that Trisha Zimmer Ferguson at Caldi's is making a brand for me to love that's creating community and creating good things for me. And she's running transactions and getting my money for coffee. And we had home delivery for it forever. We bought Highlander Grog decaf and whole bean 5-pound bags. Came to my house on a regular basis, So there's this I love it. I really do enjoy it. And I think that getting to the relational level where you really have a strong relationship, you're shooting yourself in the foot by giving AI generated slop as the front of what you do.
Yes.
Because in the same way that if I really want to wow my wife, getting her a Hallmark card, she'd be like, cool, thanks. And she'd flip it around the back and you spent $5 on this? She doesn't think that. Getting her a card from the Rifle Paper Company that's blank on the inside that I bought when I was in Chicago and was not for her birthday and just pulled it out and saved it for the next event. And then inside of it wrote, as heartfelt as I can get, note, will get a much greater result than giving her a Hallmark card and giving her a pre-made thing. So when you think about your brand, think the same way. The effort in which doing the most you could possibly do to build your brand is actually relatively not a lot of effort. It is way more money than $0. But it's not the most expensive thing you can do as a business. And it's the equivalent of the handwritten note versus the Hallmark card. That's the difference maker of tailoring your brand. And getting back to the craft store, think of the craft store rather than them having AI slop pasted on the windows. What if they got a local artist to use, glass, chalk art and make a big artistic rendition for the season? Don't you think that people are going to be able to snap pictures of that and get involved relationally with your store to the point where they become your marketing and organically market you? And the answer is, of course, that would happen. How could it not happen?
Right.
So I think it comes down to audience first. And it's not just you and I are artists and we like artistic things. I'm not making a justification that AI can't make a better aesthetic logo. I'm making the justification that the process can't make a better aesthetic logo that won't return better results.
I want to bring up the point you're making about a relationship, because you're talking kind of a little bit about the stages of marketing, because one thing that marketing is doing is you're bringing in new eyes to your brand. Another thing that marketing is doing is you're nurturing an audience that already is bought in. And I think of the example of Marcus Cinema. I don't know if you've ever gone to Marcus Theaters, but I love
Marcus Theaters. I thought you said, Marcus Cinema, and I nodded I don't know that guy. Yeah. I thought his last name was Cinema and his first name was Marcus.
Well, it could
when
be.
you said it, you're like, do you
That
know
guy could
Marcus
exist.
Cinema? I'm like, I don't. It sounds familiar. Is he a guy we know? Marcus Cinemas or theaters.
So in the Midwest,
I
we
am
have
familiar
a
with
chain.
them. Yes,
Right.
yes. They bought
right. We have a
Warenberg.
chain of theaters. They did buy Warenberg, which, I'll be honest, I've had a better experience at Marcus. No offense to Warenberg.
I think they did good with it.
They do incredible. Marcus has events constantly. I follow them on social media, and they're always sharing their events. The guy, Greg Marcus, who's the CEO, stars in like 60 to 70% of their ads. He really wants to be in these things, man. Like he wants
he has
to be in them.
want it. He has
And
to want it.
you can tell he's not an actor. He's not the guy you'd cast, okay?
He's not an actor, but he plays one on TV.
I feel like he loves his business. That's the impression I'm getting. And I get that impression when I go to a Marcus theater because the popcorn's good, the people are nice, the show starts on time, it's nice and loud. The seat's comfortable. This is not an ad. So a lot of their advertising feels amateurish, and it feels sometimes they just straight up use clip art in some of their promotional material. They're doing it on the cheap, but they're doing it with so much heart.
Yeah.
With some of their local profiles and their national profile that it connects with me. So I guess what I'm saying is that it's not always the quality. I'm not always coming at it from like this artistic standpoint. It's like they're telling me who they are. They're showing me who they are. And I appreciate that.
Well, they have a brand that you are in a relationship with, And part of it is they have a function to them that they provide you with the motion pictures that are made. So if they can keep the popcorn popping and the seats reclining, you're going to go, right? So they're not going to lose you with clip art, right? Whereas like I've always loved Coca-Cola's advertisements at movies. And they play them at Marcus Cinemas. I've always loved those. Like and they play them at AMC a lot too.
AMC,
but
yeah.
But they're really, really like it gets me into the movie mood. There's just the whole theater experience. I just have like
I have an ongoing discussion about the Coca-Cola commercial at AMC because it's a young, attractive couple and they're like moving through these different movie scenarios and then finally they're sitting together. And the debate is, do they really have that chemistry? Because I feel like it might be a one and done type date.
No, I disagree. The movies formed; they were the catalyst for that chemical reaction.
Yeah.
The movie
that's
actually
a
brought
good
there.
commercial, by the way.
But
we can reference it.
But I like the feeling of those. I like the orchestral music and the sweet. It makes me feel like I'm at the movies, and I like that, And so is Marcus losing because they're not doing that? No, it's great. Like it really is. It's like they're still getting me excited and ready for a movie. And movies they take you to another world, and a movie theater takes you to a world that you can't visit.
And when I see them
else.
post their little schedule for events, and it's like movie trivia, surprise movie night, $5, and it's all very, I don't know. It's like they're probably getting an intern to make it, but it's
it's Grandma's cookies.
It's real.
Grandma's cookies. Yep. Taste better than anything at the grocery store at all, right? But they don't taste better than like, if Gordon Ramsay made you a cookie, you're like, right? But you would go, well, no, I'm not going to like go out of my way to get a Gordon Ramsay cookie, but grandma is making cookies and I want those. And so the things that she gets intrinsically in how she presents herself create the relational value that makes something magical. And then Gordon Ramsay, I don't know why he's the only celebrity chef I can think of right now, but Gordon Ramsay knows what it takes as a craftsman to get you to enjoy that bite from the first to the last, right? He understands that. And in fact, Gordon Ramsay could probably create an even better experience for you than just the cookie itself. But Grandma did that too. But she's been doing that for, 80 years, she's been building that brand and that relational value that's paying dividends. Marcus is doing that over time, they've been building that with you. And even though we were Warenberg kids, but we know that Marcus is like, it's picking up where that left off. And it feels like when I started seeing Marcus on, the marquees of cinemas, I was like, what is that? I was like, has this always been around? Like I was, it did the job really well.
It turns out they saved those theaters.
Absolutely. Well, and because there's a lot less theaters than there were when we were kids. But getting to sort of the next point that we're getting to. We've talked about a lot of obvious examples of why, I don't want to say why AI is bad. That's not really the point. I think good curation and good craftsmanship is good, not that AI is bad. So when you don't care about the audience, you just care about getting the job done, as we were talking about on our last episode about just the things that were just, what did you had a good word for it about engagement bait is what you called it.
Yes.
But that is an audience first mentality, but it's not altruistically audience first, and it loses the value of the relationships. And you can tell because you don't know what those brands are, right? But a brand that I've been engaging with that I really, 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 really like is the Professor, Nick, I think it's Nick Henderson, who makes AI versions of songs that are soul versions of songs. I love it. I think it's awesome. And you can tell why it's awesome because
is
Nick
he on Instagram?
He's everywhere.
Okay.
He's got a big beard. He usually wears his own gear, which makes me happy. And he does his own reaction videos to the stuff he made.
Did he do a Slipknot song?
Hold your breath. Listen, I am a world before I am a man. I was a creature before I could stand. I will remember before I forget that.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Well, so he did a Slipknot and a Creed and 50 Cent. And yeah, I said 50 Cent. But he does all of these hugely popular cover songs. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday about how I really do like cover songs a lot because I love hearing a song I already liked in a different format. The problem is most people when they do cover songs do too many deep cuts. He doesn't do any deep cuts. He only does top 40 songs.
Well, and I'll say, when I hear his covers, it seems like he spent a lot of time and put some thought into them. There's no way there's a prompt that just turns a Slipknot song perfectly into a soul song. There's just no way that happens.
I have a theory, and this is actually kudos to him. My theory is that it's not as AI as he's making it out to be. I think he's tricking us, which I think is even better because it makes my point. He's, as an artist, going, what does my audience want? Not what do I want to do? He goes, what does the audience want? I've got this toolkit. I can craft something nobody can make. What does my audience want? They want Slipknot, right? Okay, how many soul bands are going to make a Slipknot cover? None soul bands is how many, right? So he goes, no, I know there's a audience out there, people who like Slipknot and want to hear what that sounds like from a soul singer.
Including a member of the band, by the way, who
I'm sure every
approval.
single one of them. I was listening to, he did a My Chemical Romance song I was listening to, and I was like, I know Gerard Way had to have gone, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Assuming Gerard Way doesn't hate AI as many artists are starting to hate, which I think is also misguided. But it's beautiful. But the reason it's beautiful is because of the Professor. He's making it beautiful. Like, that's what he's doing, right? And so, and by the way, if you want to insert some songs into our podcast on this, Nick, editing note.
The world is a vampire sent to drain, secret destroyers.
I don't think that he can actually, like, you could get some snippets of these because I don't think that he can actually copyright what he's doing.
I think you're right. We keep the clip short anyway.
Yeah, of course.
But no problem.
But with that said, so the Professor, the reason why they're good is the Professor is good. He is deciding and setting out on a path of something that the end result is something that the audience would value. You know, like for all of the Slipknot fans out there, for all the people that know of Slipknot and want to hear what it sounds like when you completely strip away what, like, the most authentic part of Slipknot is, half of it is their lyricism and half of it is their musicality. You completely strip away what you would consider to be musicality and get to the core of the melodies and the core of the interest in it. It's so good. So yesterday I was listening to Say It Ain't So, and the timing of I saw it written as Say It Ain't Soul, and I was like, stop it. But the timing of the lyrics on it and the way they're sung are so interesting, and they are not slop. They are like a legitimate creative had to have placed those. And so even if Professor Nick is just pressing go, he's still curating it. He's still making the decision at the front end and making the decision at the back end that, like, no, this was good, and then getting it to us. So a guy who is at least purporting to be an AI artist is still an artist, right? He's still making something amazing. Why? Well, because back in the 90s, an artist wrote a beautiful melody and a beautiful lyrics. And in the 2025s, an artist is taking that beautiful thing and reimagining it in the way that you could only do in 2025. And so it's beautiful. And so really the art, the core beautiful things that were already there expressed in a new way. And so that was very audience first. And so this is something, honestly, I could not believe on the way home yesterday, I was just listening to an album of this stuff because I was like, this is great. It's great. It made me like songs that I don't like regularly because I was so excited and interested not only in the beauty of the song, but in the novelty of the song also kept me. And that's part of what his attraction is.
These are artistic arrangements, and I will say it would probably all be that much better if you had a live soul band.
Oh, of course.
Performing these arrangements with great artistry. And that will, that's simply not replaced by AI.
But I can
but the
guarantee
idea of
you,
what he's done. Yeah.
I can guarantee you this will actually probably spawn live bands playing like this. That's probably what will happen because the big shocker in the music industry is that the way people used to make music was to sell records and get radio stuff. Now the way that bands make the most money is live performances. And so touring and live performances are only getting more popular. And so doing that as an AI recording on a stage, nobody would go. If you had a full soul band, which doesn't currently have a lot of ticket value right now to put out, that's why there's not a lot of soul bands out there. There's some exceptions, like people like Bruno Mars will play it. There probably will be more bands and more trumpeters and more trombonists who are going to have a job because of the professor repopularizing the genre through AI. And so the point being is an artist curating things for the audience, both at the front end and the back end. The middle part, the AI part, is not what ruins it. What ruins it is not caring about the relationship that you have with the brand in the first place. And again, I spoke about him because the song got me to investigate. I want to know more about this brand, this guy, the professor. And so I went and found him and followed him on YouTube and I think it was on Facebook probably. And on Facebook and on Spotify, I've now followed him because I'm like, I want to hear when he makes new stuff because he's probably making new stuff all the time. I want to know when something new comes out and I want to hear it. And he doesn't just do soul covers, by the way. He's actually really, really sharp guy when he talks about stuff. He's interesting to listen to.
Well, Brian, the sun has invaded my room. It's filled my room with glorious light, which means it's about time for us to put a bow on this. I'd love to hear your key takeaways. It's an ongoing discussion because it just speaks to everything that matters to us. The quality of our work, making sure we nail it and making sure that what we produce is serving the goals that our clients have and speaking to their audience authentically. So how we integrate new technology, whether it's AI or anything else, is deeply important to that mission. So I just want to hear your kind of like key takeaways if you had anything else to share, and we'll wrap it up on this discussion.
Well, I think the point to take away is human beings haven't changed. The technology has. And if we are not paying attention to the way that human behavior acts fundamentally, and we're not paying attention to how the things that we make are addressing a real human, there's a real audience there, and if we're not putting them first, we run the risk of being slop creators. And not with just AI. We run the risk of being slop creators with our typing time and with our production time. We have to take an audience-first perspective that overvalues relationships. And if we don't do that before, during, and after the creation, then we're not going to reach people in a way that's meaningful. And we're just going to be contributing to a crappier world. And I don't want to do that for a living, but I don't want to do that to my clients because I want them to see real value with the people they're trying to make relationships with. So we need to focus on paying attention to the artistry of it in the effort to help the audience find the things they're looking for.
And my final word is just a challenge to anyone who creates content, which is almost everybody on any level, don't lose that connection you have to what you make. Just because there may be more distance between your creative process and the final product, don't lose that ownership over what you're doing, because otherwise you might look over some things that you shouldn't be. So,
absolutely. Well, as we never do well, let's end the show today. If I can say it, but you can too.
I'll do my line first, but you've been listening to the Roundtable Marketing Podcast. I've been Nick. This has been
also
Brian.
been Brian. Yeah. See, you did it again. Dang it. Now you're just messing with me.
And
The end.
the end.